This is Jonathan Yates with College AD. Welcome to McDaniel College for an interview with Paul Moyer, the athletic director, or, as we call it in the industry, in the big chair. Mr. Moyer, thank you for taking the time with us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So, February is why I love the Hill month. So, what's there to love so much about McDaniel College for a student athlete here?
So McDaniel is one of those places where ultimately any student can get it done on a high level. You can come here, be involved in any number of things. Our student athletes are every major across the board. They're involved in other co-curricular programs, and they're out there in the community as leaders. But I Love the Hill is all about our students, our alums, frankly, our community. And it's why we love the Hill. I filled out a couple of them the other day, so we post these signs all over the place, and these guys know, they see them everywhere, but they give you a heart and they say, tell me why you love the Hill. So I put a couple of them on there that said, I love our student athletes and I love tailgating at McDaniel, because it's pretty special.
Now, why is McDaniel rated so highly by Southern Living as tailgating? It's rated number 6 in the country, and when you're talking University of Georgia.
Yeah, we're better than those guys. Come on,
what makes
John.
tailgating at McDaniel so great?
So I think it's tradition, number one. Obviously, you have that at a number of places, right? But it's also our venue. We've been using our stadium area for a century, and it's all about the place, so people coming back to the place and getting that experience again. If you notice that when you came in, you drove past the stadium there, and so you can turn down Stadium Drive, pull into one of the parking spaces, or pull into the grass, open up your trunk, and watch the game.
And what's that like for the fan?
It is an amazing experience. So we had our 150th celebration at homecoming this year. We had 7,000 people out there. They were everywhere. And what amazes me is that the smells, the excitement, the whole environment is just as special as you can get anywhere. You will never see this. Certainly won't see it in a Division III environment. I think there's only one other in the country that's like this venue where you can drive in, and I'm telling you, it is something to put on your bucket list. That to-do list should include tailgating at McDaniel College.
So if Kurt Cobain was from Maryland rather than Washington, he'd be saying smells like Terrier Spirit rather than smells like Teen Spirit?
Absolutely. He'd be living at McDaniel, I'm telling you. Every Saturday coming out to a game, it'd be amazing. But the funny thing is, you see our stadium out there.
Yes,
it's a great,
park in front of it.
Great little facility, great Division III venue. Our fans don't sit in our seats. They're up around the bowl, and the visitors sit in our stadium behind our players.
Now, if there was an all-academic team for athletic directors, I think you'd be on it. You have degrees from 2 great schools, St. Mary's and Johns Hopkins. You've worked at some fantastic schools, University of Chicago, one of the best schools in the world. Now you're at McDaniel, always rated one of the top liberal arts institutions.
Right.
What's the appeal of working at a great school, both academically and athletically? I mean, it definitely draws a certain type student athlete and administrator.
Yeah, I think you can rely on intelligent student athletes. I think, these kind of places attract people that are really outstanding, not only as students, but the staff is outstanding, the faculty is outstanding, and they're engaged. Our faculty mentors for our student athletes are just wonderful, special people who really dig deep to help these guys be successful in all aspects of their lives. It's not only athletics, it's about scholarship and academics, and it's about their personal involvement, their personal lives, them being successful as individuals. And I came from that environment. I'm a Maryland guy. I love Maryland, but I did my doctoral research at Columbia. I've been in New York. I was at University of Chicago, as you said. I'm not a guy who needs to be in the limelight. I'm a guy who needs to be at a place where people really care and people are committed to success.
Now, what was it like at the University of Chicago? We've all seen the sweatshirts that say University of Chicago, hell does freeze over. What were the student athletes like there, and what sort of support did you get from the administration?
Yeah, so The reason I went there is because the university made a decision to actually change. Yeah, I don't know if you know the story about Robert Maynard Hutchins years ago in football lore. They went to him and said, we need to get better, and they were original members of the Big Ten.
First Heisman.
There you go. And so Jay Berwanger, great man. But bottom line is the institution had moved away from athletics. And Dr. Hutchins said, you know, look, when I have an urge to do something physical, I lay down until it goes away. And the institution had kind of, you know, flown that flag for years. Then did a 180 and said, you know what? We're going to be proud of being excellent in everything we do, not only Nobel Prize winners, we're going to be proud of championships. So they invested in the athletic program. They hired full-time coaches. I coached and was in the athletic administration. So, and they joined the UAA, which was research universities across the country. So when I recruited an athlete, I could legitimately say, you will get a better experience here than you will in the Ivy League. We will take you more places. You will get an opportunity to play against high-level competition, and you can be an All-American. You may not be able to be an All-American anymore in the Ivy League.
Now, there was an article in the Wall Street Journal about University of Chicago football.
Sure.
There was an article in Sports Illustrated about
Sure.
Caltech basketball.
Oh, yeah.
There's another article in the Journal about MIT football.
Right.
What makes sports at such an incredibly competitive academic school so special?
I think those student athletes are driven in everything they do, right? So that's what makes it special here. I think about, we have our women's soccer team is a great example. We have a women's soccer player who's going to med school, who was an all-everything player, and she's as humble as you can be. Put her on the soccer field, she's as competitive as all get out. Put her in the lab, you know, over in the science building, she's as competitive as all get out. And those are the kind of kids that you want to work with. You know, you don't have to come in and motivate those guys. You know, you're seeing it every day. I saw her sitting in here in the gym with a couple of her teammates. It was 8 o'clock in the morning. They're over there sitting in there with their laptops, and they're preparing for a presentation they're going to do up in Boston about some research project they had done. So it's pretty neat.
Have you found the female athletes to be as competitive as the male athletes?
Absolutely. I think those are the kind of students we get here across the board. You look around you do the research on our history. We have unbelievable success on both sides of the gender equation. Our football teams have been phenomenal through the late 90s, early 2000s, winning championship after championship. But we've had women's basketball championships, a string of those. They've gone to the NCAA tournament, women's soccer, volleyball, softball. These are all high-powered programs that compete at the national level. So it's pretty fun to be with those kids.
I read in an article that at the University of Alabama, the main faculty complaint about the football program is it's tough to get tickets. What would be the main faculty complaint about the athletic programs here at McDaniel College?
You know, that's a great question. I'm not, probably that the baseball team makes too much noise
Right.
while you're interviewing people, but I don't get complaints. I think maybe that I stand up and talk too long in faculty meetings because I'm proud of them. But the fact is, well, here's a great example. So our softball team a few years ago was in the national championships. During spring finals, during final examinations, so we're taking 25 ladies to the championships. They each have 4 classes, all presumably 4 final exams. We did not have one student athlete miss that championship because of a final exam. We didn't have any complaints about reworking a final exam. I proctored a dozen final exams at the national championship for our faculty so that our athletes could compete. That's an unbelievable place. And those are unbelievably supportive faculty members.
Well, that's a tribute to the program you put in here at McDaniel.
I think our president is supportive, and it comes down to our faculty, and people understand that we're not getting people who aren't going to graduate. We're getting outstanding student athletes, and they're both students and athletes, and that's what's really special.
Now, there's a consensus out there that everybody thinks that an athletic director wants to get up to an FBS school. The big-time football program. It's just a recent example. Dr. China Jude, lovely lady. She left being athletic director at Queens College to take a deputy job at the University of Wyoming. I can guarantee you she did not do that because of the mountain biking in the summer and the ice fishing in the winter.
It's good, though. It's good.
She did that to, get her bones for football.
Right.
Well, how does that feel to you? Do you look upon that and think, should I be up there? I could have been a contender. Should I be at the big FBS school? Or what makes you happy here?
Yeah. So as an undergraduate, I got an opportunity to work in the NBA, and when that internship was done, I was hired by then the Washington Bullets, now the Wizards. I was at the highest level. I was in the NBA with Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Wes Unseld, Elvin Hayes, Kevin Porter. I mean, this was as big gets. And then I realized, this isn't what I'm in it for. This isn't, it's all about money. It was all about, what could we do that would be better than the Celtics, I'm all about being better than the Celtics. But, that for me personally didn't ring true. And then I went into professional soccer, and then I went to coach at the Division III level, and I just fell in love with it because of the student athletes. The passion they have. They're not being bought out to play a sport. They're not looking at it as I'm going pro in a year or 2 years. They're going, man, I'm going to be an engineer, or I'm going to come here and go to med school. I'm going to come here and get my PhD. Well, it's pretty exciting to be with those kind of folks day in and day out.
Now, you were a college athlete. When did you decide to commit to a career in college sports administration?
So, I was a two-sport college athlete, and it probably happened in that period, and that's why I think the liberal arts is so great. I knew, John, I was going to be a psychologist. No doubt in my mind. I was in psychology 2 years, done, took every class, flying through, and going, I can't do this anymore. I'm applying the same theories and the same processes to different populations. It's driving me crazy. I got to get out of this. And then my mentor, who was our athletic director, said, come work for me, see if you like this. And he made me the sports information director. And, I was a student sports information director, not like Luke, our sports information director, is light years ahead of me.
Yeah. There's no doubt about that.
We didn't have guys like him back then. We had, students who scribbled on a piece of paper and sent it into the NCAA. So ultimately, I think that was the passion that I got for athletics in general. I thought it would transfer into higher levels at that point when I was an undergrad. And then when I got there, it just didn't. And I have my cousin's husband is an athletic director, assistant AD at Notre Dame.
I've heard of them.
I don't know. They play a little bit out there, and God knows my dad's a Chicago Catholic League boy, and he would give me grief about why aren't you working at Notre Dame? Come on. When I was at University of Chicago, just apply. I saw they got this job down there. Just send something in. No, Dad, I'm not interested. I've been there and I did that.
Now, do you notice more and more students coming up to you and saying, hey, how do I become an athletic director? What's the path to follow?
Yeah, we interestingly, I teach a course here in our Jan term, our winter Jan term, where we take a number of students. This year I took 7 students to the NCAA convention. And it's all about, giving them that experience, having a sense of what we do as college athletic directors, and really looking at looking at kind of a networking opportunity that they can build on. So I hear that a lot. I think I told you I'm president of the Maryland Athletic Directors, and the Maryland Athletic Directors Association is doing the same thing. We're fortunate enough to have the National Athletic Directors Convention coming to Maryland this summer, so I'm really excited about that. And we're going to take 6 of our students, undergraduate students, who have an interest in this career to the national convention, first to our annual meeting and then to the national convention. And we're real excited about it. We had a meeting about it today, and we really feel like it might change some lives. Like the athletic director that I had, my mentor, changed my life.
Now, Dr. Carla Williams, she just was hired as the athletic director of UVA, as the first African American lady to be an ACC athletic director and Power 5 athletic director. Do you have more females coming to you to find out how to become an athletic director? Absolutely.
And, I'm really proud of, for example, our staff. We have a number of women here who are outstanding. It's interesting. I mean, it's trying to be able to keep really outstanding women in college athletics, and that's been a difficulty in all aspects, not only in administration but also in the coaching ranks. I think we see some unbelievable women in Division III in particular. Maybe Division III is a little bit more flexible and a little bit more community oriented than the Division I places. I'm sure Carla would do great. I was born in Virginia. I love UVA, and those guys do really, it's really just a phenomenal program. But I do think it's completely different environment, and it's a completely different experience for an athletic director.
Now, when I interviewed Heather Lake, who's the athletic director at Pitt, she said her favorite part of the job was taking someone's children and helping raise them. I mean, basically an athlete coming to college as a teenager away from home for the first time. What's your favorite part about being an athletic director?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely part of it. I think it's those moments when the light bulb goes on, when everything clicks and you get a group of students who just come together, and all of a sudden it's special, and that can be all kinds of difference. We had a women's basketball game in here the other night. We're playing the number 3 ranked team, I think, in the conference, three or four, and we haven't done as well as we've done in the past. We came out and we ran them out of the gym. It was awesome. And our players thought they just won the national championship. Now, going to a national championship, those are special. Sure. Women's soccer, volleyball, softball, those guys going in the last couple of years have been awesome. And those are experiences that they'll never, ever forget. And I think those moments that you can provide an environment that gives them that success moment, that light bulb moment where they learn something, where they experience something, those are special, and those are the things they're going to come back for.
Now, there's just something about college sports. I mean, one thing I love about college sports is to go on YouTube and watch the mascot fights. I mean, there's just something entertaining about watching a beaver fight a duck with a smile painted on their beaks as they take a roundhouse punch at each other. What's the Green Terror all about as a mascot?
So the Green Terror is a concept, although that doesn't fly often in with today's students. So we do have a Green Terror mascot, kind of a monster guy that's been tweaked. But frankly, the Green Terror is a concept. It's about a feeling, and it evolved from a story written in the Baltimore Sun, and we were playing a football game here in the stadium. New Gill was not here, so it's just old Gill, but still we persist, and the players take a path down the from up here on top of the hill down into the stadium, and they enter through the end. It was a foggy Saturday, and one of the great lines, of course, remember the journalistic styles back then. So the flavor was the green of McDaniel descended on, I can't remember the opponent. I'm thinking it's Washington Lee, but descended upon the opponent like a green terror out of the mist. And ultimately it was, something that stuck. And like all the old institutions, like all the great institutions, we're all named after colors, right?
Sure.
So we were the McDaniel green, and when you go back in our history,
Chicago's maroon.
Chicago's maroon, absolutely. The Harvard Crimson,
Sure.
the Stanford
Alabama,
Cardinal.
the other crimson.
We don't. They're too far away. We don't talk about them. But I think the bottom line is those kinds of traditions are really, really important, and that's one that we've preserved here around our namesake, and we've embellished our mascot for the modern era, but we still hold on to the concept of being a green terror.
When you mentioned the Baltimore Sun, it reminds me of a book that I was reading by Stephen Hunter, who used to write for the Sun. And in that book, it was talking about a detective who said, you need 3 pieces of evidence to solve a crime. You might get lucky with 2, but not going to happen with 1. What are the 3 things you look for in hiring?
I think ultimately, probably the same thing everybody does. You're looking for knowledge, you're looking for experience, you're looking for a work ethic. But for me, I'm looking for that little something extra that shows success. So.
And how do you gauge that? You've obviously got the 1-loss record.
Sure, and you look at the environment. What are the successes that you can measure? Those are easy. How's their recruiting ability? For example, for a coach, how's their ability to retain students? Those are numbers. You can get those. But when you talk to somebody and you can figure out, they have a passion for this, you also know they're going to be successful. If you give them a project and it gets done well, they worked hard on it. If you give them a team and all of a sudden that team is coming back and talking about not only the wins and losses, not only, we beat that team or we went to the national championships, which are wonderful, but they're talking about the experience of being part of the team. They're talking about what coach did for them. They're talking about, the difference that this program makes in their lives. And those are the kind of people that have a passion for it. And they're going to be successful, and you can find those little indicators.
They show everything.
Absolutely.
Now, when I asked Mark Ingram, the athletic director at UAB, that question,
Sure.
He said he does a great deal of due diligence to find the people he wants. He said he calls to see how they treated the cleaning lady where they were, how they treated the people in the cafeteria. What level of due diligence do you do for a D3 program here for the Green Terror?
Absolutely. So one of the great interview lines that I like to throw out there is, okay, we have your references. We appreciate those. We're going to call anybody and everybody who knows you, knows somebody who knows you, or thinks they know you. Is there anybody we shouldn't call? Because people have some gripes or grievances. You don't get along with everybody in the world. But we're going to make sure we do that. So I absolutely believe that's true, and Mark's hit the nail on the head. I think the other aspect of that is that athletic directors have a responsibility to ensure that the pool of candidates is strong. So if you do good work on the front end, it's not that hard on the back. So when I have a position that's open, I'm talking to my colleagues. I'm talking to all the coaches that are in that sport, in the ACC, in the Big Ten, in the Ivy League, in the Patriot League, in, of course, the Centennial Conference. We have in the Centennial Conference just phenomenal student athletes, and if some of them want to get into this industry, they're going to do well.
Now, how do you find that passion for a D3? You just don't want someone to come here and punch their ticket and then head off to an FBS program. Do you look for a D3 sports background as a player? Or?
You look for fit, right? So it doesn't necessarily have to be D3. Our women's basketball coach, she literally grew up in Westminster, Maryland, down the street. She walked up here, came here as an undergrad, 3-sport athlete, all everything, in our Hall of Fame, in national championships. Now, one of the winningest basketball coaches in the country, our assistant athletic director and senior women's administrator, she fits here. She belongs here. That's easy. Now, can you go out and find somebody who has an experience in small college athletics at a liberal arts school, who has successes in recruiting students who belong in this kind of environment, who really feel comfortable here. And those are things that, that you really get a sense of. Can you beat the bushes and find somebody at a small school in the middle of nowhere who happens to be beating the brains out of everybody else, even maybe some big time schools, and whose student athletes think that the experience they're getting is unbelievably special? And those are the kind of people I usually end up with.
In terms of the student athletes here at McDaniel, I was at the Night Commission event in D.C.
Right.
Mark Emmert, the head of the
Sure.
NCAA, he talked about a study they did that said that 75% of the D1 basketball players, 50% of the D2, and 24% of the D3 basketball players thought they were going to make the NBA. When in reality, every AD laughs when they point that out.
24% is pretty high in D3.
For
I've
D3,
got to say
yeah.
that.
I don't think there's a single D3 player in the NBA. But when do you think the light bulb goes off in an athlete here and it says, hey, I'm not going to make the NBA, I'm not going to make the NFL, but I'm getting a great education here at McDaniel. It's time to focus. Listen to Mr. Moyer, listen to my coaches, and bear down. When do you think that proverbial switch goes on?
I think it's different for all students. I mean, I look at a number of our phenomenal athletes that are, that have that understanding, that are committed, but they have a passion for what they're doing academically from day one. And that.
Do they appreciate the special curriculum you have at McDaniel?
Absolutely, and they appreciate the opportunity to have a flexibility in their lives that they can put together something for their future. But ultimately here it's one of those things where we may have an athlete who's trying to find his way, or find her way, and trying different majors, just like I did. And we're going to support that student until they figure it out, and then make sure that they're having success in the other two aspects of their lives, personally and athletically, until academically maybe they weave their way through the liberal arts, and all of a sudden they might end up being psychologists and figuring it out better than I could.
Well, like you say, you get 6 different diagnoses from 5 psychologists. So
yeah, I couldn't do it.
Now, I read an interview where you said your proudest moment as an athletic director was when you had a soccer player from Ghana. We'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, well, that's as a coach, but I did. I recruited. I was working in New York, really recruiting some special student athletes. New York has what they call a HEOP program, Higher Education Opportunity, and we were part of that program. We brought athletes in, and they got full scholarships and had their housing and room and board paid for as long as they were successful academically.
And what was that, a 3.0 or above?
It was actually a 2.7, but I told them all it was a 3.5. So, it was just
nice
that
to
way.
Be able to trust the AD and everything.
Yeah. No, I just love these students because, frankly, they didn't have the wherewithal to come get a private education like this. They didn't have the opportunity. And this particular student athlete came over with his dad. He had 7 siblings. They stayed home with his mom in Ghana. His dad worked 3 jobs. His dad was on the national team in Ghana in soccer. And I saw him play at a really difficult place in the South Bronx in high school, and talked to their coach. And I said, what about Marlon? And he said he's special. He's going to be special, and he's a smart kid.
Now, did Marlon inspire the American kids who thought they had it tough?
So I had a couple of those kids on that roster. But yeah, absolutely. But he continues to. So Marlon's older now, but he helped bring the rest of his family over. He paid for his 2 youngest brothers to go to college. He got his MBA at NYU, and he's out. He's in Wall Street, and he's a vice president in an investment firm. He's doing well.
How do you think he would have done down here in Westminster?
I think he's the exact same kind of guy we get here. I mean, we'll get guys from Baltimore, D.C., Philly, Boston. We get people from all over the country who come in here, and that's what the liberal arts is about, right? Marlon would fit in here. He would feel like this was home after 10 minutes.
Now, there's a guy from Seattle, Jeff Bezos, who's looking for the second headquarters for Amazon. Maryland's made it to the final 20 list.
Right.
How would you sell Westminster as a place for him to put his second headquarters? You got great wine country now.
Absolutely.
2 Maryland wineries are in the top 100, proximity
Sure.
to the Bay, everything else.
Sure.
How do you sell Westminster to Jeff Bezos?
So Westminster is one of those places that has it all. Westminster is one of those cities that's easily accessible to major metropolitan markets. You can get to DC in 40 minutes, you can get to Baltimore in a half hour. Bottom line is, we're not them. We're this special community that has all the resources of major metropolitan markets within driving distance, but this is a community. This is a place where people care, and if that kind of business comes here, he would find out this community would rally behind him and be promoting Amazon as not that he needs more promotion, but the reality is they'd adopt him as a native son.
And do you think tailgating at a football game would clinch the deal for him?
I think we could work out something. I'm thinking Amazon could, get some tips from us on marketing after our tailgate events.
So if Amazon doesn't want those tailgate passes, can College AD get them?
We can get you hooked up with
We
that.
look forward to it. Thank you for your time.
Absolutely.
This is Jonathan Yates, McDaniel College, Westminster, Maryland. College AD has left the building. Thank you.